Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got a fun episode. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here. We got quite a few things that are not on ice. Things to talk about. A little clerical work going on around the league. We got uh, quite a few different things to mention on, but I think we're gonna start right off the top with the Utah Hockey Club. I know how much you love that name. Their naming situation. Uh, so, for those who haven't heard, the Utah Hockey Club has narrowed down their naming choices. They narrowed it down to the Utah Mammoth, the Utah Hockey Club, or the Utah HC, and the Utah Wasatch, which is a mountain range in the Utah area. Uh, like one day later, they said, "All right, we got your feedback. We're not going to do Wasatch. We're replacing it with Outlaws." So the Utah Outlaws is in, the Wasatch is out. Uh, it freaking sucks, man, that they couldn't get the right to the Utah Yeti.
Yeah, we were all kind of rooting for Yeti. Unfortunately, like just weren't able to get the rights to it. So the way that they're doing this, as far as I know, it sounds like obviously it started last night with their game against the Penguins, and then I believe it's like the next 3 or 4 home games after that. Basically, it's if you're a fan and you're in attendance, you get to place a vote at the arena, and that's basically how they're going to decide the team name. It's going to be chosen by the fans. Wasatch, obviously, last night did not get a good response from the fans, so they quickly pulled that one out and threw Outlaws in there. I don't know about you, but like if it's not going to be Yeti, I hope they go with Mammoth. I feel like that's the best way to kind of give your team an identity.
Yeah, the Mammoth feels like the best name there. I really don't mind the Outlaws. It was on that original 20 names that they had last summer, and it was probably in my top 3, at least top 5 back then. Um, I'm really hoping Utah HC doesn't win. I think a lot of people are. I think it's growing on a lot of people, and to be fair, it doesn't sound near as dumb as it did when they announced it. Uh, but still, comparing it, like any other team, like they don't call themselves that, but the Flames, they are the kind of the Calgary Hockey Club. Like it it just is a little bit too bland when you can have so much cool stuff and so much personality in these names. Like the Mammoth
Yeah,
and the Outlaws, I think both have that in spades, so I wouldn't mind either of those.
I don't mind Outlaws. It just doesn't, and I think Outlaws is actually the one we specifically kind of talked about before. Doesn't really feel like an NHL kind of team name. We think of like Outlaws, we kind of think like, oh, a junior hockey team
It feels like a
or something
created
like that.
team. It feels like
Yeah,
somebody on YouTube made a franchise mode and they're playing the Utah Outlaws, like. And to be fair, Mammoth, it sounds like that a little bit as well. Outlaws is a little more generic in the way it sounds like
y-
that, but
yeah,
Outlaws does also give it a little bit of a, yeah, not overtly, but a little bit of a fuck you, right? Like we're the
yeah.
Outlaws. We do what we want. Like it's kind of like the Devils. Yeah, like it off the hop kind of gives them that, little bit of an outlaw mentality if they're total pushovers and don't play like it in the first few seasons. That'll probably wear thin, but it's a fun idea to think of a team being the Outlaws and succeeding and being like one of those, kind of a broad street bully, a good team that can also, they can out hit you, they can outfight you, but they'll also beat you on the scoreboard. But
I, I mean, I guess obviously, I think the goal for Utah, I don't know because like they still want to kind of keep ties in Arizona, which is why their AHL team is still the Tucson Roadrunners. The way kind of more and more NHL teams are doing it, I'm assuming Utah's going to try to get their AHL affiliate closer to them, as a lot of teams around the NHL are doing. Like,
yeah,
if I got my pick, which obviously they don't. Well, if I showed up to games, I guess they'd care what I have to say. But I'm not
and
going to Utah games, so they don't care. But
not super expensive tickets. You probably could if you could find your way
yeah,
down there.
good point. I like Utah Mammoth again. I think it just gives them more of an identity. the like Utah Hockey Club isn't a terrible name, but the fact that it was a big thing of getting hockey out of Arizona to kind of go to Utah and then just be bland with it. Do something exciting, right? Like you're not necessarily an expansion team, but you are the newest kind of the new kids on the block still. So like do something cool, and I think Mammoth is something that really kind of sets them apart. If you can get your AHL team there, I don't even know about Utah Outlaws, but like if you had the Utah Mammoth and then you had like the Salt Lake City Outlaws, I could get on
That
board with that. I think that would be
that's
pretty
not bad.
cool. Because I mean, it'd be kind of weird to have like Utah Mammoth and then like the Utah Outlaws. But like if you did the Utah Mammoth, but then you just did, hey, you know what? Instead of doing Utah, let's just do Salt Lake City for our AHL team, and let's do the Outlaws for them. And I think that would be a little bit of best of both worlds. And you kind of get both names, but you know a little
Yeah,
bit different
it
because
feels a
one's
little.
obviously Utah, one would be like Salt Lake City. So a little bit of a variation between them, but
Yeah,
still kind
you
of
know
along
what?
the same basis.
The Salt Lake City Outlaws does kind of have a good ring to it. Kind of sounds like an 18th century gang of cowboys or something like
Yeah,
that.
right.
That sounds pretty good. So I would not mind
I,
that
I
at
I
all.
would be on board with that, but
I'm just hoping that they don't go with the HC. I'm glad we don't have
yeah,
any truly bad names on the board at this point. There was
yeah. Thankfully,
for those the original 20, there was some wild ones on there that I think everybody knew wouldn't work, but everyone
yeah,
early on was voting for the Utah Powder because it was just so funny.
yeah. Like you got to start kind of broad, and then you slowly narrow it down, and like that's exactly what they did. That's the way to do it. And you know what? I like the idea of getting some fan input because obviously the market there and the support of the fans is kind of what made this possible for Utah to get a team to begin with, to get the Coyotes to go to Utah. A large part of it was because of the support from the fans there and the people wanting a team. So to give them a little bit of stake in the game and let them kind of have their choice of what the team's being called, I like that. And um, yeah, more than anything, like you said, thankfully there's not a bad choice, right? Like there's not Mammoth Outlaws and then just some awful one, and then people just trying to be funny, name it, just all voting for the awful one type of thing. Like you can't go wrong with any of them, but I'm definitely rooting for Mammoths because that's kind of that's new, that's different, and um, again, I just think the potential for jerseys, a logo, mascot, like all
The
that kind of
logo
stuff,
could
I
be
think would
so
be
good. Like
yeah,
this could
like
be a top tier logo.
yeah, like like look at I mean Vegas has a cool logo, but it's not not one of the top ones. But like look at Seattle, right? Like
Seattle's is
they made a
probably a top 3
splash with
logo.
their
It's
yeah
so
with
good.
their logo
Everyone
and the
loves it.
jerseys and mascot that oh, it's it's a mascot, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for Utah if they go with Mammoth, and like, and that's one way to really build that you know that franchise, right? Like the Coyotes weren't super big and popular, but the reason they started to get there was because the logos they had and the jerseys, and um, that's the easiest way to make hockey fans in general kind of fall in love with you, really.
Yeah, like it just sets you on such a good path early on. And Seattle, I like it's hard to gauge this, right? Because it's just kind of a feeling you get, but it feels like there was a lot more heat and a lot more momentum behind the Kraken coming into their first season than there has been for Utah. Even though Utah's got a better team, but it's the fact that
Yeah,
the Kraken, the jerseys are sick, and Utah Hockey Club, honestly, they do have, at the very least, the colors are good. The jerseys aren't bad. It's just the logo and the name is very bland. But
yeah.
you know what? They'll get it sorted out here. The last thing I want to say on this is, do you believe that they are actually counting all these votes and they're going to present the actual winner for the fan vote? Or do you think they're just going to
I honestly, I do think so. Yeah.
Okay. I actually have no
Because why
idea.
why even
I
why even do that if you're not going to, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. And then you
I
could
feel
potentially run into the issue, like, say they go with Utah Hockey Club, right? Like, if because I'm assuming that one's probably the bottom of people's lists. Maybe Outlaw. It sounds like Mammoth is the popular one, but I feel like if it ends up being Utah HC, you could run the risk of people kind of talking and being like, I didn't, on like fan sites and whatnot for Utah, being like, I didn't vote for Hockey Club, and if enough people kind of start some chatter, they'd be like, well, fuck, how could this be the winner when so many people are saying that they didn't vote for it, right? Like, I doubt that would happen. That enough people be talking for that, but I feel like why
I'm
why
wondering if
do it if you're not gonna go with the vote, right?
I just wonder if, there's kind of some plausible deniability with that kind of thing being like, oh, everyone who voted, like they don't have an online vote. It's all in person. The only people who voted are all these people who already spent money on a Utah HC jersey, and maybe they don't want that to go out of style, so they want to keep the name. Like honestly, I haven't even really thought about it. I don't really believe that hard one way or the other. I just want to get your opinion on it. Like
I believe that
I mean,
they'll
they're selling hot dogs for $2 or $3. Honestly, I should probably be taking their word a little bit more than some of the other teams. So,
and
they're
counter
probably doing right by him.
argument
But
if they don't the side of you don't want maybe necessarily the Utah HC jerseys to go out of style. If you go with Mammoth or Outlaws, now everybody's got to go buy another one, right?
yeah,
Everybody's going to go buy another jersey, and
yeah,
yeah,
they could sell. I'm sure you'd make more money on selling new cool jerseys than you would lose on hiring people to design those jerseys. I'm sure you'd make more.
exactly, yeah. And personally, I think just in terms of like other little extra things, I think you can make way more money off the Mammoth or Outlaws as opposed to the Hockey Club.
Yeah,
There's so many other little things you can do with Mammoth and Outlaws that you wouldn't be able to do with Hockey Club or HC, whatever they would want to call it. But
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think they're actually going off the fan feedback and their votes for sure.
Yeah, hopefully they are. And I love the thought of them being the Utah Hockey Club, and then like their mascot is like Jim. It's like Jim, the general manager or something, and it's just a guy in a suit, and he's their
Yeah,
mascot. And it's just
just a regular dude.
we're a hockey club, and yeah, here's our guy. He represents us. They don't do
Yeah.
anything fun with it. It's just like the most. It's almost like boring on purpose.
Yeah. Moving on from the NHL's newest franchise, moving on to the NHL's newest tournament that they're doing, the Four Nations Face-Off. We know as of earlier today that all of the captains and alternate captains have been officially announced for the Four Nations. So, Braden, do you want to list off who we got here?
Yeah, so we did get the complete list for all the teams. We got for Team Canada, we got Captain Crosby, of course, and alternates Connor McDavid and alternate Kale McCarr, which I know quite a few people were a little surprised about.
I'm
Uh,
not surprised. I think when you look at Sweden and Finland, who we'll get into, they obviously have the one captain and the three alternates. Canada and the US didn't go that route. For Canada, I mean, I'm not complaining with what they got. Crosby was always my pick, despite where McDavid's at. It's like if
yeah,
Crosby's still playing, he's kind of the guy to get it.
yeah.
Um,
McDavid even said it should be Crosby. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
The other thing is, I probably would have just added McKinnon in there.
that's the thing. I think that's what I meant when I said people were shocked by McCarr. Not that McCarr doesn't deserve it, but you you know Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah, I think it's just
it's
that thing of wanting to have a defenseman in the
yeah,
in
yeah,
in the
I
mix of having one. So I
I
I, I get it, and I'm
yeah,
not.
which is a theme
McKinnon's not
that we'll
losing
see.
sleep over it. I would
Um,
hope not, at least.
I can't imagine so. But for Team USA, we got Captain Austin Matthews, Cheeks himself, and alternates Matthew Kachuk and Charlie McAvoy on the blue line. No Quinn Hughes.
Yeah,
That
I was kind of shocked by that. I like if I had my pick, I probably would have named Quinn Hughes as the captain.
that's my thought.
Um,
I might have done that
but
as
then the
well.
fact
Like
that he didn't even get, he's not named as an alternate, I think is kind of wild. Again, you could have went the route of having one captain and three alternates, and you could have just put Quinn Hughes on there. And no disrespect to McAvoy, I'm obviously a huge fan of Charlie McAvoy. It's just with where Quinn Hughes is at now and what he's been doing,
he's already a
it's
captain
just
of
kind
his
of
own
wild.
team. He's gunning for his second Norris in a row. Like
Yeah,
he just seems like a clear candidate for the captaincy, less alone not getting even an alternate. So
yeah.
that's that's a bit strange. Do you think it has anything to do with him playing for a Canadian team?
Well,
I
no,
mean,
because look at Matthews.
so Matthews isn't, but Matthews also, scored 69 goals last
I
year.
mean, yeah,
Like it's,
I don't think so.
I don't
I
really
don't
think
think
so
so.
either, but it it feels like it should be something. And I don't know, maybe McAvoy knows some people or something because it just feels like a strange pick when you compare him to Quinn Hughes. But again,
Well,
not
I
McAvoy's
think
not a
going with
bad pick. Just
McAvoy, I think it's based, and again, no disrespect to McAvoy, I think solely based off the fact that he is a Boston Bruin and games are going to be being played in Boston, so I think
oh,
like why not? You
that
kind of
could
got the hometown kid because
be part of it.
he him he is the only Bruin actually. Oh no, Marchand for Canada. Um, so he's the only Bruin playing on the American. So I'm assuming that's probably why. Just have kind of the hometown guy repping a letter there. And you know what? I think it's a fine choice. I think having McAvoy as one of your alternates, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think it's still fine. It's just it's definitely more the omission of
Exactly. Yeah.
Hughes, and it's not even without Hughes, I might even go an Adam Fox over him. Like they have a lot of really good talent there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it here because I do think there's something to it, but I believe Charlie McAvoy is related to one of the coaches or the general managers.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. That would be news to me.
Who would Sullivan be on their team? I think I saw the name Sullivan in here. Is that
Uh,
a
I got no
coach?
idea.
Unfortunately,
I
I'm
got
trying
no
to
clue.
find it. The only place with the info is NHL.com, which is
Because the coach
just
for
very
the head
slow.
coach for the Americans, I believe, is Mike Sullivan. Is he?
Mac- McAvoy
Maybe
related
not.
to Mike. Let's just put Sullivan and see what comes up. Charlie McAvoy is married to Kylie Sullivan, the daughter of Mike Sullivan, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
Is
I don't. I mean, that's a cool connection. I didn't know that, but I don't think that has anything to do with it.
probably not, but it is
I think
interesting
it's
because
I think
if
it's
he's
just
the
straight up.
son-in-law,
He's games are being played in Boston. Why not have
yeah,
your guy, your American made player repping the letter?
yeah, yeah. But some food for thought there.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
either way,
definitely could be a possibility.
uh,
Sweden. Let's talk a little bit about the Swedes here.
uh, they pretty much seem, in my opinion, kind of picked all the right guys. Like
Yeah, yeah.
so Captain Victor Hedman, alternate William Nylander, alternate Eric Carlson, and alternate Matthias Ekholm. Like,
This is so Sweden. Like when you talk about Sweden, obviously they have lots of good forwards that are not only representing their team but playing in the NHL. But when you're kind of talking about Sweden, you're talking about the defensemen that are taking over the league, right? Like they've got one of the best. I don't want to say the best blue line in the tournament, but you can make the argument for the best blue line in this tournament. And yeah, like you can see it right here, having your captain and two of your alternates being on the blue line, like that fits Sweden perfectly. So
yeah, yeah, it makes it makes a ton of sense there. Like, there's nothing to complain about, really.
Yeah.
Um, and then for Finland, we got Captain Alexander Barkov and alternates Mikko Rantanen, Sebastian Aho, and Mikhail Granlund.
So who do you think got the A last minute here? Because I'm assuming, well, we're going to be talking about Heiskanen here in a sec, but Heiskanen was obviously getting one of the A's.
You know what? I hadn't actually put that together in my head because I knew obviously Heiskanen, for those who haven't heard, was injured recently. He's now week to week and will not play in the Four Nations. He totally would have been because they're the only team without a representative on the blue line. You're right. I was trying to think of a Finnish defenseman that would have been in there. But yeah, Granlund definitely I think got Heiskanen's A
See, I'm
last
kind of
minute there.
thinking Aho maybe.
I mean, he's led his team like 7 years in a row in points. Like,
I mean, yeah, but
I
I feel
just
like
don't
Granlund probably would have because he's kind of he actually might be the oldest player on Finland. So I feel like they would kind of give it to him as kind of a nod, being like, you're you're the
maybe
old guy, you're kind of the veteran of the team. Like obviously Barkov makes sense. Like he was named Finnish Athlete of the Year, just captained the Panthers to a cup, like by
that
far. Well, maybe not by
we knew
far, but
that.
like their best player. Like we knew that, but yeah, like that's yeah, they're the only team without a on the blue line, and that's because we know that Heiskanen here will not play in the Four Nations as he's currently week to week after little bit of an accident yesterday with Mark Stone. Um,
I I'm not gonna heavily disagree with people who say that it was dirty. I think that it was reckless though. I
that's exactly where I'm at with it because basically, when I watched it happen like live, like full time, I'm like, oh, that's cheap, that's dirty. But then you kind of watch it slow down, and
he got
what a
tripped.
stupid play by Rupe Hintz to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
if Stone doesn't run into Heiskanen, Hintz is probably going to the box for tripping, interference, whatever you want to call it. Um, but at the end of the day, yeah, Mark Stone was tripped, but he didn't need to dive kind of head first in at Heiskanen's legs like that.
Yeah.
It is one of those ones where you probably could have just taken that tap on the seats. You fall down to the ice, and if people say you dive, oh well, who cares? You
If you
you would
don't
have
hit
drawn a
Heiskanen,
penalty, but
you probably draw a penalty, yeah.
yeah, but
So,
trying to power through the play, and I get it, like trying to keep in the play and not let a little trip get to, but um, yeah, like, and he did play the puck like fair, but again, diving headfirst into a guy's knee like that is um, it's just a reckless play, and a little bit of the blame is obviously on Rupe Hintz for tripping Stone, but Stone should know better than to not only put himself, because he could have got hurt doing that, putting himself and Heiskanen in that position, like didn't need to do that,
yeah.
and that's um, fortunate for Dallas at least that it sounds like he's only week to week, and he's it's not
Yeah,
season ending. Because I mean, if it was season ending, like that's
that's your number 1
unfortunately
D-man.
that yeah, like that would be it for Dallas. I wouldn't have um,
I
Dallas winning the cup at all. Like they could still be a threat in the playoffs, but without Heiskanen
there's
there,
not a team in the world that can survive their best defenseman going out. Like, that's
yeah,
you only have 6 defensemen. If you take any of them away, it hurts depth, but you take away the
yeah,
best one,
and
it's
when it's not even
who
close,
overcomes that?
like when it's
Yeah.
not even close from Heiskanen to your next guy, and um, I think the unfortunate part is for Finland is that I think that kind of
They were already
real like it's
the biggest underdog of the tournament,
yeah, and now
and
losing Heiskanen and being like, oh, who's your number one defenseman? Well, same thing the Dallas Stars are saying. It's Essa Lindell, and
that's not
yeah,
great.
that's tough. The one thing I will say, and I know this because I watch a lot of San Jose games, is it could be okay for Finland to bid on the power play because that's all Mikhail Granlund does. Because San Jose, I mean, they have Jake Wallman, but when Woolman's not out there on the power play, like Granlund just he plays on the point and runs the power play from back there. So um that could
Good.
help Finland because again, like without Heiskanen, your blue line is is it's hurting. It's not looking good.
It's certainly not Sweden. Yeah.
There's NHL teams blue lines that are better than Finland's, encompassing all of the Finnish players around the league, and there's NHL teams whose blue lines are just straight up better.
Yeah.
So that's a tough loss for Finland, but injuries are a part of the game. They happen,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate.
Unfortunate, and yeah, the injuries do not stop there either. Unfortunately, Kirill Kaprizov undergoes surgery for a lower body injury and is out for a minimum of 4 weeks. We were just talking. Was it as soon as last episode, or two episodes ago?
I think a week ago. I think it was like exactly a week ago we were talking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about Kaprizov coming off IR. It looks like he's ready to go, and now he's out for surgery, and he'll be out for at least a month. So that's pretty brutal for the Wild. I think they're still going to hold on to their playoff spot, but
I think
uh,
so.
I mean, like we just said, with defensemen, that's their best forward. You lose your best forward. What the hell are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a rough little stretch for them. Thankfully, they will have that little bit of a break there with the Four Nations. So
That'll be huge
you
for
know,
them.
uh, they don't have to play as many games during this time Kaprizov's out. But yeah, right now for the Wild, it's really just holding on to a playoff spot. Like going for top spot in the division. I don't want to say it's out of the question for them, but it's looking very unlikely. So right now, it's just hold on and just keep yourself in a good enough spot. So when Kaprizov comes back, um, you can start gearing up for the playoffs. You're not going to be trying to chase down a spot at the end of the season.
Yeah. We got a couple other random bits around the league. Philip Grubauer has been sent down through waivers. He just cleared waivers a little bit
Finally,
before we started.
surprised it
Uh,
took that long.
Honestly, and I mean,
I don't know who Seattle's got down in the AHL as their goalie, but like Grubauer just wasn't cutting it. He was putting you at a disadvantage. Like you could just see the whole team just look different when Grubauer's in net as opposed to Joey Decord. So and
yeah,
and having Grubauer at his what is he even making? Like 5.8?
I'll bring it up here. It's yeah, it's
5.75. Like when you're paying a goalie that much, you feel compelled that like you have to be playing them.
and I think that's why
Like
it
you
took
can't
them
just
so
have
long to
that
send him
much.
down.
Yeah, like you can't just have that much dead cap just kind of sitting on your bench or
Yeah,
whatever. Like you felt compelled to play him, but just send him down to the AHL, see if he can, figure his game out, just get it going, and you
hopefully he
ride
turns
Joey
it.
Decord for a little bit. You've only got about like a week and a half until the break for Four Nations, so just ride Joey Decord for that time. Try and rack up some wins, and yeah,
Yeah,
because Grubauer just unfortunately was not cutting it, and um,
yeah, he's making 5.9 mil for the rest of this season, and then two more. His contract did just go from a no trade clause to a modified no trade clause, which is a 10-team no trade list.
you won't
Don't
be
know
able to
how much.
trade him.
Yeah, I don't know how much that matters if you can't move the guy. It is only 2 years after this season, so like, if they really want to move him, I'm there might be a team willing to pick that up and just
You'd
bury it in
have
the
to look.
minors.
You basically have to look at Chicago.
Yeah, it would be a
Like
team like
Chicago's really
Chicago.
the only team, and then doing so, it's like would if you're Seattle, I think you just bite the bullet and you just buy him out in the offseason as opposed to having to, uh, you know, at least a second round pick, potentially a first, because he does have 2 more years. And when you look at Grubauer, it's like
I think it'll
it's
be
it's
too
not even
much on a
getting like
buyout.
a forward or a defenseman where it's like you can kind of put him in the lineup and pair them with the right guys. It's like it's a goalie that just it isn't getting it done. So, and for a team like Seattle, that's you know, I don't really. They're kind of in no man's land right now. I don't really know the direction that they're kind of going in. I think you're better off just buying him out than having to give up picks or one of your good prospects to offload him. I don't know what a buyout would look like though.
I actually
We
have
don't
the
have
buyout
cap friendly.
calculator right here, but
Oh, you have a buyout calculator. Okay. So what would a
yeah,
buyout
they
look
got
like if they bought
yeah.
him out this offseason?
They do have one on cap wages now, which is very nice.
Cap
It
wages
would
is so clutch. They
so
saved us.
if they bought him out this season, actually this would be in the off season. Looks like.
Yeah, it would have to be in the offseason. Yeah.
So his cap hit next year would be that's too many numbers. It's 2 mil. It's like a couple decimal places under 2 mil.
Okay.
Um,
So
then
2 mil.
the
Yeah.
then the year after it would be just a hair over 3 mil. And then the final 2 years, in year 3 and 4, it would be 1.7 mil for those
Oh yeah.
years.
So you just buy him out.
I think at this point, you might as well
Like
just
with
keep them in the minors. Like, they don't need that cap space the next 2 years, do they? Like,
no, but you can use that cap space a little bit to kind of facilitate maybe on some trades and helping other teams out. Maybe getting an extra, you know, pick or something along the way.
they got 2.7 mil in cap space. They're probably already moving out of Yanni Gord at the
You're
deadline.
just doing
Sounds
a
like
disservice to Grubauer
5.1.
though. You're better off just buying him out and letting him go sign. Look at what
But nobody's gonna sign him. Like, he's going to an AHL team either
see,
way.
but we thought that about Martin Jones when he got bought out by San Jose. We thought that about Jack Campbell when he got bought out by Edmonton. We are like, oh, these guys are cooked. They're done. And uh, I think Martin Jones is down in the AHL for Toronto still. But he went to Philly, played some games. He was a beast with Seattle. He's logged some games with Toronto. Um, Jack Campbell, I see a little bit of a different situation this year for him is going through the player assistance program. But I feel like you just part ways with Grubauer. You just say, you know what, go and try and go sign league minimum somewhere. Try and kind of find your way back in this league, even if it's just being a backup. And yeah, I think you just
Uh,
kind of wipe your hands clean. And you move
I
forward.
just
That cap hit's not gonna kill you.
they're also planning on getting like 9-ish mil in extra cap space with the cap going up this offseason. I just don't see a reason to need to move him. Like, their backup right
It's not
now
that you
after
need
this
to,
is
but
is
you're just doing a
Alice
disservice to
Stezka.
Grubauer. You're just doing a disservice to Grubauer.
I don't think
You're
so.
just basically ending his NHL career by saying just
I
stay
think
in the
they're the only
minors for
ones
the next
keeping it
2 years.
alive. I don't think anyone else is giving him a real shot. Their backup
But
is Alice Stezka.
but we
Nobody's
thought
heard
no
of this
one
guy.
we thought no one would give Jack
He could,
Campbell a a contract. We thought he was done.
and he hasn't really done anything. Like,
But again, I said for him different story because of he went into the players
I think
assistance
it's
program.
I think it's unfair to look at the team that's paying this guy who's playing poorly $5.9 million to say they're ending his career. Like, come on, he cashed in, he got the bag, and this is one of the teams where he's got the best chance to get back to the NHL. Seattle would love for him to play good and be on the roster,
100%, yeah,
but
but sometimes it doesn't work in places like, if he, and Seattle's not a great defensive team. Like they have a lot of holes that they're trying to address, but
yeah,
obviously that takes time. Like you can't just change that overnight.
yeah,
Um,
they're going through a bit of a
but I
retool.
think there's teams out there that you bring Grubauer in as a very cheap backup because he doesn't have a leg to stand on in contract negotiations. I think he could be serviceable on a cheap contract in front of the right team. I think you'd at least get a chance. And I mean, Seattle, like you said, the buyout would only be for an extra 2 years, and in that, the cap would only be like 1.5.
But starting this off season, that's in 4 years. Like, 3 and 4 years is when they're going to need the cap space. I feel like in the
But
in the
that
interim they
1.5 is
don't
not
really
gonna
need
not
it.
gonna break the bank for them. They're not gonna be right up against the cap.
No, but they're going to need to use it more than they're using it now. Jeez, he's an
But why? Why you
866.
you,
They
you could
started him
use
for
that.
21 games this year, and he's at 866. They're really
Yeah,
trying to get it out of him.
like you could use
That's
that cap
brutal.
space again to retain on contracts to get picks back. You could do it to just take on a bad contract from a team that's got like 1 or 2 years left and get some picks or prospects back to help clear up space for another team. because I don't think Seattle is going to be a legit contender for at least 2 years. So
Yeah. Honestly, you know what? Another thing I'm seeing is I wonder if they don't want to buy him out, not only because of that, but they don't want him to go somewhere else and turn it around. Look at this guy's career stats. He's been not good, elite everywhere except for Seattle. All the way back to 2012, 915 for Washington, 925 for Washington, 920 in Washington. That one is a single game that year, fair. But a 918 in Washington the next year, 926, 923. Then he goes to the Avalanche, 917, 916, 922. That year, he's a Vezina finalist. Goes to Seattle, 889, 895, 899,
I mean, in
866.
fairness, like what was playing in front of good teams in Washington and
Oh,
Colorado before going to a bad Seattle team.
oh, for sure. But like usually you see a .007 dip or something like that. But like he's going from consistently hitting 920s to he hasn't hit 900 once with the Kraken over a season. Like that's a
Well,
very big
and
drop
you,
off.
you
He
can't
is also
you
playing a
can't
couple
buy
less
him out.
games there.
You also can't buy him out mid-season. Like you have to wait until the buy window. So even if Seattle wanted to buy him out right now, they would have to wait until the off season. So I imagine
Mm,
once it's off season, they're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, let's just buy him out. We can kind of move on from him and let him try to find his way back into the league. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't. But I think it's better to
yeah,
just wipe your hands clean and kind of reset
yeah. Really
your goalie
depends if they
pipeline and
want to
kind of
use that.
build it around Joey Decord.
Yeah, because pretty much whatever happens, unless Grubauer starts putting up consistent 920s or something, even then, he's 33 right now. Like, even if he does, you're probably still going with Decord in the future. They just extended him
Yeah.
for 5 years. So,
And having
yeah,
Grubauer down the HL, you don't want him taken away. Like it could be a good guy to learn from, but you don't really want him taking away starts and minutes from your other goalie prospects that'll be coming up. 'Cause I think Seattle's got a couple that should be coming up soon.
Nicholas Kakko, Kim Saarinen, and Victor Ostman is what's listed.
All
I
right,
I do not know a
yeah,
ton of
okay.
goalie
Actually,
prospects,
none of
but
those names ring a bell, so I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Seattle and Grubauer.
yeah, and another guy who didn't actually get bought out, he agreed to a mutual contract termination. This kind of came out of nowhere. Brandon Saad with the St. Louis Blues, uh, kind of out of nowhere, he got sent down on waivers, and uh, we figured out afterwards that that was for mutual contract termination. That means the player and the team both decided because if both teams are on board, you can just get rid of the contract. It's not a buyout.
Yeah,
He's not even getting the money. He's not getting paid out. So,
yeah,
and
he's forfeiting a good chunk of change.
he's given up a decent bit. He had a contract through the rest of this year and next year for $4.5 million. So he's probably given up around seven
Around six
mil,
mil.
6 to 7. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a pretty penny. So
That's a guy who wants to win. That's a guy who, despite already having a couple of Stanley Cups under his belt, he wants to go chase another one. I can respect that. He's willing to give up that much money to go on the hunt.
and you know what? I think he's going to find himself getting a lot more time on ice wherever he goes than he was getting in St. Louis, but I don't know if he's going to be able to make more money than he was going to get because
No,
he's
I see him signing a remainder of the season like $1 million contract,
oh
and
yeah,
then
but I
maybe
mean like
re-upping with
over the
that
rest of
team
his
or
career.
testing. Oh yeah.
Like
Oh,
he's
the rest of his
prob
career, I think he will. Yeah, I think he'll make that money. I don't know how much more than that he'll make, but
Yeah, because I assume after the end of the contract that he had, he would have still signed somewhere, and it's hard to judge how much he would have gotten either situation. But he's got decent stats throughout his career. You know, he's perennially a 30 to 55 ish point player. Uh, good good left winger. That he's 32 years old, so he's not crazy old yet. Last year he played all 82 games for the Blues, 26 goals, 42 points, not bad. This year, 43 games played, so I think that's he's missed a couple of games, not a ton, but might be some healthy scratches in there. 7 goals, 16 points. So just under half a point a game. Like, definitely not unusable. I'm kind of wanting to find some of his advanced stats here, honestly, because I want to see his like time on ice. Because if he was playing down in their lineup, he like no wonder he's not racking up points, right?
Hmm. And you know what? There's obviously there's numerous teams out there that are going to be inquiring about him because the ability to sign a guy like Brandon Saad on, again, it's what's going to be a cheap contract for just the remainder of this season and bring him in on your middle six or your bottom six wherever, um, and not having to give up anything for him in terms of assets. I think there's going to be lots of teams, requesting for him to come and join them.
Yeah, I
Where do
definitely
you
think
think
he's
he
gonna have
goes?
offers.
Well, like if
Uh,
you had to pick a team or teams that you think he's most likely to go to, who would you be leaning towards?
uh, you know, middle six winger, relatively cheap. Like, there's always teams that could use it. I could see him go into a. He's already played there for a bit in his career. He could go to back to a Colorado. They obviously need winger depth. Honestly, Tampa really needs a second line winger, and if he can play at that level, I wouldn't hate giving him a shot. There's there's quite a few other teams. Teams like the Bruins are always looking to bring in a guy. I could see. Well, I don't. I'd have to look at Toronto's, but
See, so
they're
like
most
he's an
playoff
American
teams.
player, so most likely he's probably going to sign with an American team.
Fair.
But
Always played in
like
America as well.
it's
All
it's
his
kind of
teams.
just screaming like Edmonton or Toronto. I feel like both those teams are like just desperate to bring in, a middle six winger that can kind of do a little bit of everything. I could see Edmonton or Toronto really trying to get him in.
Makes
But again,
sense. And
never know because obviously we know that it's um, again American players, so
he's
sometimes
also
they're not as keen on relocating all the way up into Canada and whatnot.
yeah, especially if you're signing a 1-year prove it deal to get a bigger deal elsewhere, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he did play his last 4 years in St. Louis. Um, so I got to imagine Coach Craig Berube in Toronto probably knows whether
Uh,
or not they want to
yeah,
bring him in. So,
yeah. It's definitely a
whether they do
possibility.
or don't get him could hinge on that, at least if Toronto comes and knock it, because
Yeah,
he 144 points in 274 games. That's over half a point per game in his 4 years with St. Louis, and that includes this year. So he does have a little bit less time on ice. Looks like on average this year he's at down to 1436.
yeah,
So he's definitely not getting quite as much ice time, but it's not enough to explain a rather decent fall off
yeah,
in production.
yeah.
Well, honestly, so he's on pace to be maybe 7 points underneath what he hit last year. Like, it's not like he's fallen
Okay.
off a total cliff. He's got 16 and 43. That's not, so if you inflate the 43 to an 82, you probably put the 16 to around a 30. So he's 30-point guy.
Yeah,
Like, there's room for him in the league. I'm
yeah.
I'm
There's
surprised.
definitely going to be many teams trying to get him. He's going to have
Yeah.
lots of teams to pick from.
Yeah. I am surprised that he agreed to the mutual buyout and he just didn't take the money, but you know what? Sometimes the guys just want to play, If he thinks he's got
Yeah.
the money, more power to him.
And you know what? If he goes to a strong contend team like Edmonton, or I'm not going to say Toronto, but if he goes to a team that can go on a deep run, he's a beast in the playoffs and whatnot. He could easily earn a decent contract. Like he could get a I don't even know. I guess it would depend on what he does in the playoffs. But like, it's not even out of the question for him to go to free agency and he gets a 4.5 million per year deal for 3 years or something.
Yeah, all he has to do
Like,
is turn it around for the last 30 games of the year and then playoffs.
yeah, like
He's good to
that's
go.
we've seen it happen with. We've seen happen numerous times with players where, um, yeah, you kind of walk away from your team, leave some money on the table, and yeah, you end up going to a good team, getting to play with some good players, and go on a playoff run, and yeah, you can easily earn that money back on another contract.
Um,
Um, Going
moving
to a
forward
team
for
that
him,
got an addition, but not necessarily through a trade or anything. The LA Kings finally got defenseman Drew Doughty back after what was a pretty scary looking knee injury he suffered in the preseason. Did make his return to the lineup the other night against the Florida Panthers. Rumors are he could be making his way to join Team Canada for the Four Nations with Alex Petrangelo out. They have not named who the replacement is going to be, but you obviously got to assume that Drew Doughty, now that he is back and playing, is going to be in consideration, and that's a big ad for the Kings there.
yeah, that's massive for them. Like he really does so much on their blue line that's that's going to be if the he also goes to Canada, honestly it'll be just as big for them, but
Yeah,
yeah, the Kings, they've been doing really good this year considering they haven't had their one of their best leaders and their number one defenseman the entire season. They're
yeah,
26, 16, and 6. They've got 58 points. They're third in the Pacific. Like they're they've been crushing it. So the just adding him in as well is going to be huge for them. I don't agree with who they healthy scratch to bring him in, and that's Brant Clark.
yeah, yeah. That's a it's such a messy situation. Like, I don't even know what's going to happen there. Like, there's reports that they could be looking to ship him out, which I think would be wild to, get rid of a young defenseman drafted so high with so much potential. Um,
And he's doing well this year. Like 24 points in 47 games. He's over half a point per game, plus 8. Like I think he's up there in leaders for time on ice on the Kings as well. Like he's
he did get off to a really hot start and kind of has slowly kind of cooled down,
mm,
which again, like that's not good. But again, it's a rookie defenseman, right? Like, there's going to be little bits of growing pain. It's his first full year in the league. Like, just give him time. Don't stress out and immediately ship him out when he's a big part of your team for the future. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but the LA Kings are just absolutely insane if you you move out Brant Clark.
yeah, like if this sours the relationship, that'll go down as a real bad blunder. The fact that they decided to scratch Brant Clark instead of who's their sixth defenseman here? Jacob Mauvrier. If you've heard that
Yeah.
name, I haven't. Um, like they they got a pretty good blue line, but the blue line's not good enough to be like, yeah, he's the odd one out.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm not sure what they're going to end up doing, but I definitely think trading Brant Clark is would be a big mistake for them.
Yeah,
That would not be a good look for them if that's the route they took, and I don't think that's the way they're going to go.
I would hope not.
But
If I was a Kings
I
fan,
mean, I
absolutely
get
wouldn't.
it. Like, again, if it is a rookie defenseman is struggling, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having him sit in the press box for a couple games here and there to kind of watch and learn. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that,
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't lead to a trade. Which, again, I don't think it will. But huge for the Kings to get Doughty back, as that's the biggest part of their blue line, and they're definitely going to need him down the later half of the season here, and then obviously in the playoffs. As I think the Kings are comfortably going to make the playoffs.
yeah. A team that
Team that might not make the
might
playoffs.
they might, but we'll see. The Canucks president Jim Rutherford confirmed that there is a rift between Pedersen and Miller. We already knew it, but he confirmed it for us. And I, why? Why did he feel the need to confirm it? That's not going to make
Wh-
people stop talking about it.
Yeah, and I disagree with people that are saying, like, oh, him saying that just completely made the Canucks lose all leverage in a trade. They had no leverage. Everybody knew that there was an issue.
I think this takes their leverage from 20% to 10%, though. I
I
think it
don't think
does
they
still
had
hurt.
any.
Well,
Like,
they
us
definitely
as
have leverage.
fans, like, we knew there was an issue. And if we knew that there was an issue between them, every GM, every scout, executive around the league knew that there was an issue.
Yeah, but the
This was
fact that
confirming what we already knew.
yeah, but it also him coming out to publicly say it means it's getting bad enough he has to come out and publicly say it. Like, they could just if they just sat there downplaying it, it doesn't look as bad. They're both good players. They're not on horrible contracts. They've got terms, so they might not have to move them. Other people are working on trades with them as well. Like, there is still quite a few reasons why the Canucks could have leverage, and this just takes a little bit more from it, saying, "No, yeah, there's definitely problems, and we probably got to move one of them." Like, we knew they wanted to, but for him to come out and publicly say it, it just adds a little bit more on there, and
Yeah, you know who I think is the
it's just an
happiest
unforced
by him
error,
doing
you
it?
know?
I think JT Miller's happy he did it, because JT
Probably.
Miller was always the one getting hounded by the media to talk about. We never really saw much with Pedersen having to deal with it, but like it was Miller. Every interview, after every game practice, like he was getting asked about it. Now, in his interview yesterday, he was asking, he's just like, I'm not commenting on, I'm not talking about it. He doesn't even have to like bullshit. He just says, I'm not talking about it. You can
Yeah.
ask me 50 times. Each of you can have your one question, two questions, and ask me. And I'll just say, we're not talking about it. Let's move on. Next question. So it's kind of nice for Miller. At least he doesn't have to deal with all that. He can just shut it down. And be like, let's talk about the game. Let's just talk about hockey. Let's not talk about what's going on in the room here. Um, so what do you think the Canucks would do now? Because they've already made it apparent that if you're trading Miller or Pedersen, um, the Canucks want to get like pieces back now. Like there's been rumors of Buffalo being interested in Pedersen and Vancouver being interested in Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram, both who I think would be great fits in Vancouver, and
That would be good. That's a
it's
good
the
starting point
closest
for
area
sure.
pretty much for Cousins almost. Bowen Byram's from BC, so like obviously he would love to be a Canuck for life. Um, but that's kind of what their thought process is, right? They want to get pieces now to stay competitive. They don't want to go and get picks and prospects for a rebuild because they know that means down the line Quinn Hughes is going to want out. Quinn Hughes isn't going to want to sit through a rebuild. Like he's already he's the second best defense in the league, probably going to win his second Norris in a row. He doesn't want to sit through a rebuild. So their plan is to get pieces back to stay competitive, win now. So I think you just trade Miller and Pedersen. I think you go out, you find teams, and you just work out deals, and you ship them both out, and you just wipe your hands clean and build around the pieces that you get back for them.
It'll be pretty tough to find a trade for both of them at the same time. I think whichever one goes first, whichever it ends up being, uh, you see what happens with the other guy. Can he make it work? If not, maybe you move him.
I think you just have to
If they
move
have
both because
any
they've ruined
locker
that
room
locker room.
issues, but it's not a locker room issue. It's two guys. I know it's
Well,
pissing
like
everybody off, but
there's
it's
rumors that Demko is kind of wanting out. He's kind of done being in Vancouver. It sounds like Brock Besser's like all but gone. Either Vancouver trades him at the deadline or he's walking to free agency.
yeah.
Like I think you just trade them both because if
But then you're going to
the
lose
problem
Hughes.
is like,
You're no longer competitive. You just
but
lost
if
two
you
of your
can
best
get
players.
pieces back, like again, like obviously you're happy more piece, but what we've talked about before, if you trade Miller and you get um Simone Nemec and Dawson Mercer is kind of something we threw out before.
Yeah,
Again, I think Vancouver maybe would have to add a little bit of something. I don't know necessarily what New Jersey values Simone Nemec at this moment. I'm assuming high. And then you move Elias
you would hope.
Pettersson, you get Dylan Cousins, Bowen Byram,
You
maybe
know,
something else.
if they could pull both of those deals off, I like both of those deals. So
But I'm saying
honestly,
if you can do something, because like if odds are most likely in terms of right now, you're not winning a Miller Pettersson deal. Maybe in the long term, Sure, but as of this moment for this season, probably not.
Yeah. And that's
And I
why I'm
feel
saying
like
you shouldn't force both of them to be a trade. If you have two good trades set up, I'm not against moving both of them. But if you move one and then you're like, all right, you know what? We should move the other one just to clean ourselves, clean slate, and you don't have a good deal set up, and somebody ends up fleecing you for the other guy when the problem was mostly solved already. I feel like that would be a bit
well,
of a
I
blunder.
don't think the Canucks would actively move both if they were getting fleeced in a deal just to get rid of both. Like obviously they would
Yeah,
if they're moving both, it would be they're for sure moving one. One of them's
yeah,
going to be gone by the deadline. Like that's confirmed.
yeah,
Um I feel like you just run the risk like again like you said they're not just trade them like they're going to get a good value back that they feel is fair. But I feel like you just run the risk like if you trade Miller, which I think right now Miller's more valuable to the Canucks. I think he's more of a playoff performer,
yeah,
more of an all situations guy, cheaper contract too, which does help. Like you trade Miller, and then I feel like guys might just be sitting there being like looking at Pedersen like you just fucking ruined this team. We had the chance to go on a run this year and um, you know be a playoff team, and you just fucked us. You couldn't put your issues with Miller aside, and Miller would be getting the same treatment if they trade Pedersen, obviously.
yeah,
Like I feel like you just got to trade them both because like that locker room's just going to be looking at you like you just couldn't put your personal shit aside. You had to just cut this team off at the knees because you valued yourself so much higher. It's like I think if you just get fair value for both of them, I think you just do it and you try and show Quinn Hughes because that's all that matters is
yeah,
what Quinn Hughes thinks at the end of the day. You just got to show
yeah,
Quinn Hughes like, hey, we had an issue, we just completely removed it. Look at all this that we're bringing in, and if you're moving out Miller and Pedersen, two players, two very good players, but if you're getting like two defensemen back and two young centermen or forwards, like makes your team deeper. Maybe don't have the quite the
yeah,
star power, but being like, hey, look at all these pieces here, young pieces, like that all are all around your age that you can grow and build with, and look at this core
yeah.
we're building now. Like
If
I
they
think
could
that's the way
get
the
one of
Canucks
those
do it.
good trades, I think that would be a great idea. It just like with all see, we throw out all those trades, and so many of those seem to, at the very least in the ballpark. All the real trade offers I've heard are horrible.
Mhm.
Like the ones the Rangers are offering, and the Rangers wanted them to sweeten it. It was brutal.
Yeah,
So, like, if that's the actual going rate for those players, like I would at least consider going into summer with both of them still on the team. If
I don't think
nobody's
you
willing
can
to,
though,
I don't
because
care.
you just
I'm keeping
completely
both
ruin
players.
that locker room. You have to move at least one by the deadline.
If I don't get a better offer than a slightly worse version for me of that Rangers deal, I don't move either of them.
But do you do it at run the risk of Quinn Hughes at the end of the season being like, all right, I'm done. I want out. Because that could very well be a possibility. I'm
It could
not like
be.
I don't know what's going on in Queen Anne's mind or anything, but like that's a risk you potentially have if you hold on to both for the rest of the season,
Yeah.
especially if the Canucks don't make the playoffs. Like you hold on to both of them, you miss the playoffs, and like vibes are just and we've been talking about vibes a lot. If vibes are as low as they could possibly get,
Yeah.
like Quinn Hughes might just be like, just get me out of here. I don't even want to bother doing this.
Yeah.
I feel like at
Uh,
least if you move one, you bring some peace and you can kind of kickstart getting something
well, but
going to go into
that's what
next
I'm
year,
saying.
even if
If
you
they
miss the
don't bring in
playoffs.
pieces, because like that Rangers trade, it barely brings in anything.
Well, I don't
Like
think
it,
they're gonna do that deal now. Now that the
yeah,
Canucks like know where they're at, because like bringing in Hedel and Lindgren, that doesn't do shit for
exactly. And that's why
keeping
I'm
you
saying if
competitive.
that's the absolute best deal you can get, then I would at the very least consider holding on to them.
If that's the
If
absolute
anything,
best,
like
I think
what we
you just
said
blow it
with
all up.
the yeah, like
You just blow
if
the
any
entire
of the
team up
deals we
and
talked about with Buffalo, with New Jersey, hell, even if the Dallas one we talked about the other episode is on the table, push comes to shove, you take that instead of going into summer with both of them. But if you're getting Hedel and Lindgren and a cap dump on your team for one of your best players, like it might not be the smart call, but like honestly, like fuck them all. I don't know. Fuck the other GMs. Fuck these guys for fighting. You're all gonna sit in it, and we're gonna try and figure it out in the summer, I guess.
Yeah, like if you hold on about that, I think you just go into next offseason and just say, all right, fire sale, day of the draft, send us your best offers. Everyone's on the table. Like there's we're going into a rebuild, and let's just
Yeah.
restart. Because if the reports of Brock Besser are true, like I think even if there's a playoff run potentially, I think you have to just move him at the deadline. You got to get something back.
Yeah.
Because where the locker room seems to be, Canucks, like even Canucks make the playoffs, you're not winning the cup probably. Especially if you run to point of playoffs where you can't have Miller and Pedersen out there together.
Helps your depth. Doesn't help you win,
Helps you,
really.
yeah. Yeah, you got to move Besser and get the absolute best. And I think the market for Besser would be quite high. Like there's no issues around him.
Yeah.
He's a beast. Like
There's a lot
teams would
of
be
teams
all
that are
over him.
already looking at him, I think. I think
I would
there's
love to
quite
see
a few teams.
Minnesota get him. I don't know if
I
Minnesota necessarily could, given up how much they kind of gave up for Yurchuk, but
Yeah.
I know Besser would love to sign long term and settle down in Minnesota, go back home. And Minnesota would love to have a player like Besser in their top six.
Yeah. Brock Besser is my dream trade for Tampa for this trade deadline. If they can make the money work, having him as the second line right wing and having him be that right-handed shot they so badly need in Stamkos'
I don't
spot
think
on the
Tampa
power
could
play.
afford him though.
I doubt it. We'd have to definitely move out some salary, and it depends what their ask is. But that's my dream pickup for this deadline.
Yeah. Because Besser's market value for an extension, assuming he gets traded and signs in 8 years, probably 8 years, 8 mil to 8.5.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
about
probably something like
what
that.
he's probably going to be getting. So, but yeah, man, Canucks got some shit to figure out because yeah, fuck. With reports of just players getting sick of it and the locker room just everyone walking on eggshells, like
Yeah,
you gotta try and figure it out as soon as possible.
yeah, and it's weird because it is hard to tell. Like, who knows? Maybe a lot of the locker room doesn't care. We've had it confirmed that Quinn Hughes has been asked quite a few times. He says, "I don't want to talk about it." Uh, Miller and Pedersen, they're both pissed off. Uh, we don't. The rest of it's a lot of hearsay, a lot of rumors. Uh, Maybe they're just on a losing streak. It's so hard to tell. Maybe it's worse than we know. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to tell where they're at because so much of it is these 30-second sound bites from interviews and stolen glances on the bench. Like it's so weird. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
So I can't wait until one of them gets moved and we can start to see the healing begin.
Yeah.
The forest will reclaim the land there.
Uh last little bit of talking here before we get into the real or fake to end the episode. Let's talk a little bit about the Calder Trophy. Rookie of the Year. You mentioned before we started recording here that you think that Michkov probably isn't. There's a chance he might not be the finalist when it's all said and done for the Calder this year. And we didn't get too deep into the talk, but I said as of right now, he wouldn't be a finalist
Yeah,
for me.
and so I actually went online and looked up some betting odds, and the odds completely back us up on that. I'm not even going to name the guys in fifth and sixth because they are both at over 10,000 odds, like not even close. But the top four are in it. It is Macklin Celebrini is the favorite at minus 135. If you don't know betting odds, that means he's most likely to win it. Lane Hudson's in second at plus 140. Very close. It's almost a tie between those two. In third is Dustin Wolf at plus 1,100. Much further off. It appears to be down to the two, Celebrini and Hudson at this point, but Wolf's hanging around. And then at plus 2,900 is Michkov. So he's actually almost 3 times less likely to win it than Dustin Wolf, who's already in third.
Which that's exactly my three finalists I'd have if the NHL season ended today would be Celebrini, Hudson, and Wolf.
Yeah. And Wolf has a chance to pull it off, but I think there's just so much talk around the other two that it's going to be hard for him to win it. Even though, like honestly, I will absolutely hear an argument for him being the best rookie of the year right as of right now. Like 28
Yeah,
games played, a 915 as a rookie goalie. Like
started
we
out in a
just
tandem with Dan Vladar and quickly became the starting goalie for the Flames. Like he's their go to guy, and he's getting the bulk of the starts. And especially if Calgary's serious about trying to make the playoffs this year, Wolf is 100% going to be their guy down the stretch, and he's going to log a lot of games
yeah. And they're
in the remaining part of the season.
and the Flames on the season are 24, 18, and 7. Respectable record, but not phenomenal. But with Wolf in the net, they're 18, 8, and 2. Like that's
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 not
pretty
far
good.
off from Logan Thompson numbers.
Like he's crushing it there. So I would love to see him get a little bit more love, but right now it definitely looks like most people are favoring the other two, and it's a toss up. Celebrini missed those 10 games, but he's still hovering around a point per game. I think he's 3 or 4 under. Uh, Playing good defensively. Lane Hudson is around the same point totals, but he's got those 10 more games played to get them. Obviously, way less goals because he's a defenseman. Playing a ton of minutes, Lane Hudson. Like there's so many arguments both ways.
I'm
I don't
so
know how to
in
call it.
in between on them. I will say the one argument that I hate, um, because again, like I can make arguments for both of them, but the one argument I hate people making for Lane Hudson is, oh, he's a defenseman. Um, Strictly because they're like, oh, well, look at he's putting up the same amount of points, but he's doing as a defenseman. Okay, but counter argument, Celebrini's putting up way better defensive numbers as a forward.
Yeah, there
So
you
to
go.
me, like that evens it out. One's an offensive defenseman, one's a kind of a two-way center.
Hudson probably has the puck
Evens out.
more. Yeah, Hudson probably has the puck more than Celebrini on the power play. Sure he's a
Yeah,
defenseman, but uh, how much defense are you playing on the power play when you're doing that, right? Like
yeah.
it's it's so weird and so hard to judge, and they have similar numbers, and one's a defensive forward, one's a forward playing defenseman. It's so hard to
Exactly.
separate them
Yeah,
too much.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think the later half of the season is really going to kind of determine. I think
yeah,
who comes on top. Because I think right now, when I look at it, it's kind of a it's I think it's going to go to Celebrini or Hudson, but the door is still wide open for Dustin Wolf to have a great stretch down the back half of the season and win it. There's a good chance Michkov could easily
yeah. If he
start
turns
lighting
it
it up
around,
again like he was at the start of the year, and he could
he
come
could
back
definitely
and
sink
take it.
back in.
Like there's a clear top two is my favorites, but the door is still wide open for Wolf or Michkov to
Yeah,
not only come back make it as a finalist, but easily win it.
yeah. Like honestly, like you know, for the guy who's been you know helping his team win the most, probably Dustin Wolf. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
just by nature of being a goalie, but I guess, but you know,
yeah,
the league average save percentage is it's either a 901 or a 902. I think it's 901 right now, and he's got a 915 as a rookie. Like
yeah,
this team was not supposed to be doing this well this year. They
yeah. No,
Nobody had them going into February as like 1 point out of the playoffs.
yeah, like right in the hunt. So yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that.
But
I'm
we'll
very
keep an
excited to
eye on
see
that.
how that shakes out down
Yeah.
the later half of the season.
Yeah, it's really fun when you can talk all year about it, you know? There's so many years where it's just, oh fuck, no nobody's even close. Bedard's winning the Calder. Like even if he goes on
Yeah,
a cold stretch and somebody heats up, like we don't even last year until Faber really started heating up, we didn't even know who the other finalists were going to be, less alone if anyone could challenge Bedard for it. Like
yeah,
nobody even really had an argument by the end of the season if you really want to argue Faber with his time on ice, but even then it was still pretty foregone. So it's a
yeah.
fun conversation this year for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that's everything we have to talk about other than your segment that we got at the end here. Are we doing a little bit more real or fake?
Yeah. So quickly before we dive into the real and fake, I just want to highlight some and this won't take long, we'll quickly fly through. Just want to highlight some players who are really kind of carrying their team in a sense in terms of like point production. I've got a list here. This was as of yesterday, so like some of these guys might be like one off, but I think most of them are still relatively the same. This is players who there's like every team's leading score differential. So like every team's top um, player
Point
with the most
producer?
points, like the differential from them to the next closest player.
Right.
Um, So I won't go through any of the guys that are like in the singles, but these are all the players that have 10 or more points than
Then
the
number
player
2.
closest next to them. Um, Troy Terry, 10 more points than the next closest on the Anaheim Ducks. Connor Bedard, 10 more points than the next closest on the Chicago Blackhawks. Philip Forsberg, 11 more points than next closest on Nashville. Crosby on Pittsburgh, also at 11. Artemi Panarin and Clayton Keller, they are both 12 above the next highs. Mikko Rantanen, 14 on his new Carolina Hurricanes. Jack Eichel, 18 more points than the next closest on the Vegas Golden Knights. Mitch Marner, 18 more points than the next closest on the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going to get a nice payday.
Sure is.
Nathan McKinnon is now 19 more points than the next closest on his team with Mikko Rantanen being traded. McKinnon would be way lower down on this list, and Rantanen wouldn't even be on this list if the trade did not happen.
Well, yeah, I
The top
guess
four, some of the two of these are pretty wild, being the top two. But
I've
David,
I've got 2 of my picks absolutely locked in. I
who would that be?
um Nikita Kucherov has to be on there, and I
Yep,
got to imagine that Pasternak is on there as well.
David Pasternak is at 21 more points, and the next closest on the Boston Bruins. Tied at number two, we have Nikita Kucherov and Quinn Hughes, both 22 more points than the next closest on their team.
Fen
Do
Smith
you know
has
who's it?
22 more than the second guy. They've got a
Yeah,
guy making 11.6, man. Oh,
yeah. That's really just highlighting like how good Quinn Hughes has been for the Canucks.
Hart
Do you
Trophy
know who's at
season.
number one for the biggest point differential?
I mean, it's not Edmonton. It's
It's a team out east.
team out east. Somebody's going off. Nobody else is. It's probably not the Panthers. Oh my God, there's no way. Is it
Yep.
Zach Werenski?
No, no. Zach Renski's
Oh,
one
uh,
point more. I think
uh,
Marchenko is.
I was getting excited.
The
Uh,
Philadelphia Flyers.
oh man,
Travis
they were
Konechny,
not even on my radar, man.
24 more points than the next closest on his team. Travis Konechny having a career year for the
Great year,
Philadelphia Flyers, and he has 58 points. Michkov has 34.
and that's a rookie.
Yeah,
Their second highest scoring player is a rookie, not even in the top 3 in rookies anymore.
yeah.
That's and it is a good year for rookies, but like that's still a
Great year
wild
for rookies.
sentence.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. That one
Well,
and Quinn
wanted to
Hughes
highlight
is
some of those
no, yeah.
guys there.
I love those stats.
But yes, we are now going to dive into some real or fake. Those listening at home or in your car or in the shower or in the bedroom, wherever you are,
It's
you
usually
are
on the
more than
toilet for
welcome
me.
to. You are more than welcome to join in on this and trying to guess who the two real players are and who the two fake players are. Braden, you went perfect last time. You guessed the two real players and the two fake ones. Are you ready for round number two?
I am. You did pick one of the real players last time was a guy who had played a couple years for Tampa. I imagine that
Yeah.
won't be happening again. So I did have one guy that I was pretty sure of last time, but I feel like this time I'm gonna have 4 question marks. But let's hear
I
it.
feel like I've done a good job, and this one should definitely will definitely get you thinking here.
Let's have it.
The first player we have up here is Martin Lapointe. He is a French Canadian right winger who was drafted 10th overall by the Detroit Red Wings in the 1991 NHL draft. Already having won 2 World Junior gold medals, 2 QMJHL titles, and a Calder Cup in the AHL prior to making his full-time NHL debut in 1993, only 2 years after he was drafted. He won 2 Stanley Cups with the Red Wings before he was released and signed with the Boston Bruins. He finished his career with the Ottawa Senators with 991 career games played. He is currently now the Director of Player Development for the Montreal Canadiens. That is Martin Lapointe.
Oh, they love bringing those guys in too. Played in the
Ready for the next one?
queue, drafted by the Red Wings. Okay. All right.
The next up is Todd Marchant. He is an American left winger, drafted 164th overall in the 1993 draft by the New York Rangers. Despite being drafted in the 7th round, he made his debut the very next season for the New York Rangers, only playing in 1 game before he was traded to the Edmonton Oilers in a 1-for-1 trade for Craig McTavish. Craig McTavish, who went on to win the Cup with the Rangers in that very same season. Todd, however, went on to be a solid 40-ish point player for the next 10 seasons with the Oilers before signing with the Columbus Blue Jackets, where he played for 3 seasons before claimed off waivers by the Anaheim Mighty Ducks at the time, where he went on to win his one and only Stanley Cup. He is not active in the NHL anymore after retiring, but he does host a week-long hockey clinic every summer to raise money for charity. That
What
is
a
Todd
beauty.
Marchant.
Okay. I've not heard of any of these guys yet, but there were some names in there. You know, he played for the Ducks in 07. He won the cup, got traded. Who did he get traded for?
He was traded 1-for-1 for Craig McTavish.
Craig McTavish. I don't know much about him, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that name enough that that's a real that's a real name.
That Craig McTavish, yes.
Yeah.
Not related to Mason McTavish, though.
No. Of course not.
Next up, we have Tari Hartikainen, a Finnish left winger who was drafted 26 overall in the 2006 NHL draft by the Minnesota Wild. Made his NHL debut in 2008, where he scored 37 points in his rookie year. He played for the Minnesota Wild for 5 seasons before being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, where he spent the next 5 seasons of his career before heading back to Finland, where he is currently still playing in the Liga, where he has led the league in points in 3 of the past 4 seasons.
Led
Tari Hartikainen.
Is the Liga the top league in Finland?
Yeah.
I don't. Something smells fishy there. He's played in the NHL for a couple of teams for a few years. And then he went back to Finland. He's leading the Liga in scoring for a couple of years. Well, I don't know. I think a team might have. There might be some smoke around this guy.
There's nothing crazy about a Finnish player wanting to go back home.
Oh,
it's also
true.
a big differential between the NHL and the Liga.
Oh, of course. I'm also thinking, like, what teams he played for? Carolina and was it Minnesota?
Yeah, he was drafted by the Minnesota Wild.
I feel like those are 2 teams that have a lot of Finns, especially Carolina. And I'm wondering if the AI would pick up on that and send him there, or maybe he's part of that. And
I will say I used absolutely no AI. I will say for this one, I did use absolutely zero AI. Last time I did use AI for the names, but this one,
this one's just off the dome.
This is all me. This is all me.
Okay.
This is all me using my big brain. The last player on the list here, we have Jake Halverson, an American defenseman who was drafted 42nd overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets in the 2002 NHL draft. Despite being an American, he did play in the OHL prior to being in the NHL, where he was named OHL Defenseman of the Year in 2002, his draft year, and 2003, the following year. Despite the impressive junior career, he only played 71 games for the BJs before being traded to the Minnesota Wild, which was his home state, where he ended up setting, and which currently holds true to this day, setting a Minnesota Wild franchise record for 443 straight games played before being released by the team. He bounced around from team to team for a couple years before retiring in 2016. He now currently serves as an assistant coach for the Iowa Wild in the AHL, the Minnesota Wild's AHL affiliate. For those who
Of
aren't
course, of
familiar
course.
with the AHL,
Okay.
that is Jake Halverson.
Okay. All right.
If you need me to
So,
go through anything with any of them, feel free to let me know.
uh, the third guy, Tari Harkkonen,
Tari
uh,
Hartikainen,
Hartikainen. What year did you say he was drafted?
2006.
2006. Him still playing 19 years later. Like that's still realistic,
Well, fuck,
especially in the Liga.
I could do something in the 90s the way Yager's going.
Ah, true. Yeah, dude. If you do this with somebody who doesn't know about hockey, they're always saying fake for Yager if you bring up any
Dude,
real
actually.
stats. You'd have to lie about his stats just to get them to guess he's real.
You could say how many NHL teams he's played for. I'd be like, all right, that's fake. Yeah, no,
He's just a beast.
yeah.
And he's playing and he's 50. Okay, I'm sure, buddy. Do you think I'm stupid? Um, I think that Martin Lapointe is real. I
Okay,
think
that was the first guy I did, the French
yes.
Canadian right winger. Okay.
I Something is telling me that Hartikainen is fake. So I'm kind of wondering between the other two. And honestly, this is a very random thing to go off of, but it's really all I had because they both obviously you did a great job. They both sound very real. I'm gonna go with Todd Marchant is the other real option because you said Jake Halverson played 71 games for a team, if I'm not mistaken. And I do know that is Macklin Celebrini's number, and I'm just taking a swing and saying that you threw Macklin's number in the stats. That's all I can think to go on between those guys.
So you are saying Martin Lapointe, the French Canadian right winger, and Todd Marchant, the American left winger. You were saying those are the two real, and you were saying Tari Hartikainen, the Finnish left winger, and Jake Halverson, the American defenseman, are the two fake.
Yes.
So I will tell you that the 71 games played for Jake Halverson had nothing to do with Celebrini.
I was grasping at straws. I was trying.
The 71 had absolutely nothing to do with that. Jake Halverson, however, is fake. He
He
is not
is.
real. The 71 had nothing to. That was just a random number I threw out there. It did have nothing to do with Celebrini, but Halverson is fake.
All right.
Martin
All right.
Lapointe, you said was real, setting all those incredible accolades before even stepping foot into the NHL, and now with the Montreal Canadiens, he in fact is real. You are
I
two for
I
two so far.
I might not have said he was real, but it's so funny because it's the easiest thing you could have come up with if he wasn't real. But if you didn't say that he is now working with the Canadians in the office, like as soon as you said that, I wrote down that he was real. I was like, no, that's
Oh yeah,
no, even though that's the easiest lie you could come up with about a fake NHLer. Like French
yeah.
Canadian now works with the Canadians, but I was like, absolutely. It just makes sense.
And then you had Tari Hartikainen, the Finnish left winger. You thought he was fake,
Yes.
where he's currently dominating over in the Liga. Unfortunately, he is not dominating in the Liga.
He's
Um,
not, he's fake. Or is
I
he
didn't
just
say
too
fake. I
bad?
just said he's not dominating in the Liga, but
Oh,
he is fake. Tari Hartikainen is
okay.
fake, which means Todd Marchant, the American left winger who somehow like a seventh rounder playing the following year in the NHL. He is real, and he was traded after playing only one game. So
Yeah.
you went a
He
perfect 4 for 4
I
once
was
again in
much
that.
less confident about this one. I felt good about the first one. Um I just kind of had to try and guess who seemed the most fake out of the other two. Because honestly, Todd Marchant, yeah, his story seemed a bit weird as well. Yeah, honestly, yeah. If the number literally wasn't 71, I might have just swapped my picks there. But even though that wasn't a
Shoot.
tell, it kind of was, I guess.
I just randomly threw 71 because I thought, okay, maybe he came up, he played like a couple games at the end of the season, played all the way up to like the trade deadline the following year. That's kind of around you get around to the 70-ish
Yeah,
mark. So you did it. You were all done. You went a
yeah.
perfect 4 for 4. Those who playing at home, I'm hoping you guys went 4 for 4 as well. And if you didn't, well, get good. You
Tough.
you you suck.
Yeah,
Um,
8 for 8 so far.
you are on a roll so far, and we will be coming back to this in a couple weeks, and we will test your knowledge once again. But
Yeah,
if you did play this
that
at home,
definitely tougher than the last one. That was really good.
I put a lot more thought into this and did everything off my own brain. So I'm glad that my brain stumped you a little bit more than using a little bit of AI tools to come up with the fake players last time.
Yeah.
Um, but if you did play at home and you want to let us know how you did, you can do so through any of our socials. They are down in the description for every episode. Go click and come by. Tell us how you did. I'm assuming a lot of you got them all wrong. You thought the two fake were real, and if you did, I don't blame you. I'm kind of a stud like that, and I'm just a beast. So, but that will wrap up everything for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Braden, as always, give us your final thoughts.
Oh, see, Miller, Pedersen, whoever it is, just let's see the trade happen already. Let's just
Yeah.
see it happen. Come on, let's get a move on.
Yeah.
Dustin Wolf for Calder.
This is gonna be a very crazy trade deadline. I have a feeling there's a lot of names rumoring and swirling out there. So and always having the potential of a Sidney Crosby trade that could maybe happen. The likelihood is always is still there, and it's more real than it's ever been. So I feel like we're getting set up for a good. We're eating good for the next month.
It's gonna be
We
fun.
got uh we got the Four Nations coming up, and then not long after that, only a couple, I think like 2 weeks until the NHL trade deadline. So we got a lot of good and fun stuff coming up. So we are going to be having lots to talk about on here. But that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you all enjoyed. And as always, we'll see you guys out on the ice on Tuesday next week.